Some of you may feel by the end of this video that this is unnecessary, but I beg to differ. And part of this gets at the heart of reading the directions on math problems. I feel like some of you read the directions on math problems, but in the end, whatever the words say, you translate the instructions into do this, right? And to me, there's a big difference between two words, and those words are evaluate and simplify. Right? The word evaluate means to find the value of some expression. And so in practice, what that means is when you evaluate something, you're going to find the value, you're going to get a number for your answer. And on the other hand, what does it mean to simplify something? When the instructions for a problem say simplify, they're not expecting you to find a number as your answer. When you simplify something, it means that you're making some expression simpler. Generally speaking, that means your answer won't be a number. It might be a number, but generally it means that it's going to be an expression, which means that, a mathematical statement that has letters and variables in it. It might be a number, but more than likely it's going to be an expression with variables in it. Part of the reason that I want to make this distinction is I feel like as math students, you guys have been trained to evaluate things more often than simplify. You guys are used to, at the end of the problem, I have my 5 and I put a box around it. Or I have my 17 and I put a box around it. Or my square root of 3 and I put a box around it. And I want you to know that a lot of times in calculus, we're going to be simplifying things instead of evaluating things. Lots of times you're going to be getting answers that are expressions, that have variables in them, and we need to know that that's okay. So now I'd like to give us some practice with this, right? So I want us to take the function g of x equals x minus x squared, and for each of the following 5 problems, and I put them sort of in color order. We'll go orange, or red, then orange, then green, then blue, then purple. I didn't do yellow because it didn't show up very well on the screen. So for each of these things, I want you to determine whether you're going to have to evaluate, or whether you simplify, and then actually do that for these problems. Okay, and I'll go through these one at a time. So the first one we'll do is we'll go through this, the g of 5, right? So we'll zoom in here a little bit. So how am I going to do g of 5, right? Well, g of 5 means I take my g of x function, g of x equals x minus x squared, and I plug in 5 everywhere that I see an x, which means 5 minus 5 squared, which means 5 minus 25, which means negative 20. Right? So in this case, I was able to evaluate this expression because I was able to come up with a number for the problem. Right? The next problem we want to look at is g of b. Right? And this may seem a little bit strange to you, but we're going to deal with it. The function was g of x equals x minus x squared. And I almost want to make a quick mention back to the previous video. What does this mean? It means there's a function named g, and when you input x, this is what you get back. What is this thing asking you to do? It's asking you to input b to this function. So what that means for us is that we are going to plug in b everywhere that we see an x. So that means b minus b squared. So that's b minus b squared. And congratulations, you're done. That is what g of b is. So in this case, were we able to evaluate this expression? The answer is no. In this case, we had to simplify. Right? Now, some people might feel like this expression is simpler by factoring. Well, that's fine. If you wanted to say that one's simpler, works for me. Like saying that one answer is simpler than another is just not an argument that I want to get into. If this was a multiple choice question, the simpler answer would be whichever one shows up in the multiple choice options. Okay? So what you're going to notice here is when there's a variable inside here, you're not going to be able to evaluate. You're going to have to simplify instead. All right, so let's move on to the next one, to the green one over here. Right. G of b plus 3, and this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. Right. For this one, we need to evaluate, or to simplify, g of b plus 3. So remember, what is g of x? G of x means x minus x squared. Okay? So what does this expression mean? It means that you are supposed to input what? You are supposed to input this thing, that entire thing, wherever you see an x. So g of b plus 3 means that wherever I see an x, I put in b plus 3. And in this case, unlike the previous one, we actually have some work to do in simplifying this. Like when I simplify this, I'm gonna work through this. This is b plus 3 minus. Now for this one, I'm gonna have to FOIL this business out. I'm gonna end up with b squared plus 6b plus 9. From there, I can distribute that negative, get b plus 3 minus b squared minus 6b minus 9, and then finally combine like terms. Negative b squared minus 5b minus 6. And this expression right here is g of b plus 3. We were able to simplify this. Again, we weren't able to evaluate because I'm not plugging in a number, but I was able to simplify this thing. Okay, I've effectively got two more examples that are very similar to that, and I'm hoping that you guys will be able to do these on your own. The first one here is, what is g of x minus 2? Right? Well, g of x minus 2 means that we take the g of x function, and what do? And I want you to sort of pause the video and think about this, right? Pause the video and think, what am I inputting in this function expression? I hope that you answered that you are inputting a value of x minus 2. Note, this does not mean that you do x minus x squared and then put a minus 2 on the end. What that is right there is that's doing g of x minus 2. I want you I want you to input this value, right? So, we'll make some space for that. This means I'm going to do, when I do g of x minus 2, I'm going to do x minus 2 minus x minus 2 squared. Right? So same thing we did last time. I'm going to have to FOIL this thing out. So I'm just sort of running through this so you guys can see the answer. Minus x squared plus 4x minus 4. Combining like terms, negative x squared plus 5x minus 6. And there it is. This is g of x minus 2. And the last one I have, and this may feel tedious, I promise. This is going to be really, really big in the coming lesson, so it's important that we get this out of the way here. How am I supposed to do g of x plus h? I believe you guys should all be able to do this now. You should be able to think about the fact that g of x is x minus x squared and simplify what g of x plus h is. So pause the video and do that now. So g of x plus h should be x plus h minus x plus h squared. So this gives me x plus h minus x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. And in this case, I'll be honest, there's not a lot of simplifying that you can do, and figuring out the right order to do this in is kind of messy. But, I'll write down what I can. I'll put the negative x squared first. I guess the plus x plus h minus 2xh minus h squared. You could sort of do this in whatever order you wanted. This again, I suppose this is an example of simplify. Again, this feels really, really messy, but in some problems that we're going to do that are coming up, this is actually going to work out to be a really, really nice thing. So the last thing I want to do in this video is I want to expose you to a style of problem that's going to show up in the assignment that you have coming up. And it looks really scary. A lot of students have a lot of trouble with it, but it's really, really easy if you just think about what the question's asking you to do. Right? So here's the example. The example is, given that f of x equals x squared minus 4, simplify this expression right here. Right? And I promise you, I know this is just nonsense right now. This thing right here is like magic. It does amazing things for us in a couple of weeks. For now, we need to deal with mechanics and just fighting through how to do the problem. I promise you, I will explain what this means later, and it's gloriously beautiful. You're gonna love it. And if you don't, there's something kind of wrong with you. But that's okay. We'll deal with it. So to simplify this expression, right? To simplify this thing, I look at it as there are three parts. There's the f of x plus h part, there's the f of x part, and there's the h part. And what I sort of want us to do is I want us to write down, okay, so what is f of x plus h? Figure that out, right? What is f of x plus h? Well, according to the previous problems we did, it means take this thing and plug in x plus h wherever you see x. So that means x plus h squared minus 4. Now, just like we did before, let's simplify this a little bit. This would be x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. And if you need to do work on the side to be able to simplify that, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, take the time that you need in order to do this. There's a minus 4 on the end. There's not a whole lot I can do to simplify that, so it is what it is. This thing, and this is really important, this thing is f of x plus h, which means you can put that thing here. Right? Now, next up, what is f of x? Well, we knew from before, f of x is x squared minus 4. That means this expression can be put right here. And then the last thing is, what is h? Whatever, h is h, it's going to be there. So how can I simplify this expression? I can simplify it by writing down the things I just did. I can first put x squared plus 2xh plus h squared minus 4. Then I can put minus, and in parentheses, x squared minus 4. And then on the bottom I can have h. And the idea is, I bet that we can do some great things in simplifying this. And in fact, we can. If I go through and simplify this, I still have my x squared plus 2xh plus h squared minus 4. Then distributing the negative, I end up with minus x squared plus 4, and it's all over h. So the cool thing that happens is, this is x squared minus x squared, and this is minus 4 plus 4. So when I do that, what I have left is 2xh plus h squared all over h. And because all three of these terms have an h in them, I can effectively divide out that h, and end up with just 2x plus h. And I know this doesn't mean much to you yet, but it should be kind of awesome that I was able to take this crazy expression up here and find that when I simplify it, it ends up being something really pretty, like 2x plus h. What's even more amazing is that actually means something, and I'm going to keep it a surprise for a couple weeks. So I hope you can hang in there, and I'll see you in the next video.